This science fiction horror film is originally based on a John W. Campbell Jr. novel from 1938 by the name Who Goes There? It is a prequel to the 1951 Christian Nyby film The Thing from Another World. The story arc of The Thing documents a troupe of American researchers in Antarctica who come across an unusual shape-shifting parasitic extraterrestrial entity that first assimilates its victim and then imitates other living organisms. This eponymous alien-like thing overruns the group with conflict and paranoia when they learn that anybody could be infected by the thing and they cannot trust anyone from the crew. What followed later were gory visuals of the monstrosity that the thing showcased through its prey. When a Norwegian helicopter chases a sledge dog in an American research station set in Antarctica, the researcher witnesses the passenger of the helicopter weirdly blowing down the helicopter while he was in it. The pilot of the helicopter screams in Norwegian and takes a shot at the dog until he is killed off by the station commander Gary. The Americans then send their pilot, R.J. McCready, and Dr. Copper, a researcher, to carry out an investigation at the Norwegian base. At the base, among the frozen corpses and charred ruins, they find the burnt remains of a deformed humanoid, which they transfer to their American station out of curiosity. The autopsy of this inhuman carcass strangely accounts for a normal set of human organs. The previously kennelled sledge dog wreaks havoc as it metamorphoses and weirdly absorbs all the other dogs at the American station. The monster thing was incinerated only when Childs, the chief mechanic, blasted its face off. Upon the autopsy on this, senior biologist Blair confirms that this entity is equipped to imitate all other organisms perfectly. Upon further investigation of the Norwegian base, the data leads the Americans to an excavation site where an alien spacecraft laid partially buried for over 1,000 years. Blair is seemingly ridden with paranoia when he finds out that this entity has the power to assimilate and absorb all the lives on Earth in a matter of a few years. Slowly, this parasitic, alien-like humanoid infiltrates the entire station, isolating and picking its victims one by one, turning each and everyone in the station against each other, driving them to suspect and murder every member of the crew. Every victim that morphed into the thing showed a gory, spine-chilling, eerie result, whether it was Norrie's chest transforming into a huge killer mouth or Blair transforming into a full-blown monster-like creature. The plot did not have a happy ending, even though the humanoid thing was contained and incinerated. The film ended on a rather morose and nihilistic note as McCready and Childs, the only survivors from this monstrosity, sat by the burnt remains of the station in the raging cold temperature of Antarctica and waited for death to freeze them over while they shared a bottle of whiskey. Before The Thing came under John Carpenter's wing, it went through a plethora of writers and directors, each with varied ideas on how the pre-existing story following The Thing from Another World should be explored. After a season of brainstorming, when the shooting finally began, it lasted for 12 weeks straight and was filmed under refrigerated sets based in British Columbia, Alaska, Juneau, Stewart, and Los Angeles. The film was budgeted for $15 million, out of which just $1.5 million was spared on makeup effects creator Robert Bottin and his humongous team, who used a mixture of chemicals, rubber, mechanical parts, and food products to create The Thing, an iconic humanoid capable of taking on any form. John Carpenter brought in a stellar cast for the movie, wherein R.J. McCready, the helicopter pilot who survived the ravages of The Thing, was played by Kurt Russell. Chief Mechanic Childs was played by Keith David. A. Wilford Brimley starred as Blair, the senior biologist. T.K. Carter as Knowles, the cook. Richard Dysart as Dr. Copper, the physician. Charles Hallahan as Norris, the geologist. Richard Masur as Clark, the dog handler. And Peter Maloney as George Bennings, the meteorologist.
Will do you last.
Why did it fail? John Carpenter's The Thing was released in the 80s, and by its late success, it is evident that this piece of work was truly ahead of its time. The movie did not make more than $19 million at the box office, and was unfortunately a commercial failure. Although the production involved months of difficult execution of time-consuming and complex practical effects scenes, alongside relentless shoots on freezing cold sets, the visuals were definitely not for the soft-hearted. The outright horror and suspense tense that Robert Bottin brought to the screen with a seething, aggressive and gory outlook of The Thing did not sit quite well with the audience and critics of that time. John Carpenter was shredded to pieces with the harsh reviews. Some even mentioned that all the characters of the movie were devoid of any warmth or substance and merely existed to be either decapitated or disemboweled or to be eaten or regurgitated by a thing that is nothing short of junk. The lack of comic relief and the existence of a grim, morose ending ridden with hopelessness apparently drove the plot towards being depressing instead of taking on the more realistic approach. Another vital reason for the backlash Carpenter faced for The Thing is the 2 weeks prior release of Steven Spielberg's E.T., The Extraterrestrial, which had showcased the extraterrestrial from a rather gentle point of view, as opposed to the horrific and nightmarish version of John Carpenter's creature that was also served with a side of stone-cold nihilism, really acted as the final nail in the coffin for Carpenter. Furthermore, the summer of 1982 witnessed a bumper release in the genre, mostly under PG-13 rating, but The Thing was strictly rated as R, which made it difficult for the movie to navigate its way out from being a critical and financial disappointment. Had it been a more reasonable season, it was possible for the movie to garner a wider audience. Although the audience of the 80s were not ready for Carpenter's cynical, dark, grueling movie in the present day, The Thing has a cult following and is considered as a pulse-pounding classic. It was outright wrong that The Thing's entire direction was judged based on Spielberg's direction of a cuddly alien snacking on Skittles. Both movies, although sharing the same genre, had vast differences in tone and setting. The debacle caused by The Thing adversely affected the career of a 34-year-old John Carpenter, who was heavily misunderstood to the point where he was dubbed as the pornographer of violence. His career almost ended as he feared of not being hired ever again, although he had given the industry a few legendary horror movies before The Thing was released. The sheer rawness and horror of this fictional humanoid creature was too strong for the taste of the audience, but as time evolved, so did the perspective of the audience, and The Thing found a home with televised airings and home videos, which slowly allowed it to work its way up and eventually turn into a classic with a cult following. It accomplished its feat to a point that the current high-rise appreciation has dubbed it as John Carpenter's magnum opus. The characters of the movie were finally able to break free from the tag of being mere props and were seen for their individualistic survival traits that were introduced with utmost subtlety. The movie was applauded for what it intended on doing, embracing the darkness. Robert Bottin's masterpiece is now considered an entity with raw and rich depths, carefully documenting the coarseness of an entity capable of lurking anywhere or in anyone, equipped to imitate and assimilate all living things on Earth. If not for Poltergeist and E.T. the Extraterrestrial running over, The Thing had the potential to be the blockbuster for the summer of '82 as a heavily successful VFX movie. The socio-political condition and the pop culture zeitgeist were just out of touch, as the audience of the era could not relate to a bleak portrayal of mankind crumbling in the face of enormous adversities, unlike now, where the audience has evolved up to a taste for a more cerebral and darker fare. The Thing is ironically celebrated in the present day for the same reason why it received such brutal hate when it was released. The grim undercurrent, which was seen as a deficiency in the screenplay, was actually applauded as it supported the rampant secrecy, fractured dynamics, and pushed the characters to act on their self-serving impulses to stop the mega evil around them from flourishing and taking over the world.
I mean it.
In conclusion, ironically, the ravages of time actually allowed John Carpenter's The Thing to receive the appreciation it very much deserved. The film's VFX and the practical effects are not everyone's cup of tea and are definitely not a soothing visual to the stomach. The grim tone, the cinematography, the screenplay along with the visuals weighed in perfect balance to make this underrated, misunderstood art a masterpiece recognized during the correct time period. There is no dearth of horror sci-fi movies revolving around aliens or extraterrestrial entities today, but yet The Thing stands out for its sharp and brutal nihilism. Please let us know your thoughts in the comment box below on this misunderstood, timeless Carpenter classic, and also mention your favorite John Carpenter horror movie. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.